From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Thank you, and welcome to the Tuesday, August 15, 2017, 2 p.m. session of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. I will turn to County Counsel Mark Nations for a report on actions taken in closed session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board met in closed session on items 41, 42, 43, and 44. No reportable action was taken in any of them. Item 45 was not held and will be rescheduled for another day.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nations. And next, we'll consider our consent calendar. If you'd like to follow along with our agendas, they are available at the two back tables by the exits. All items listed with a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. And so this time I will read the consent agenda items. First, we have items on page 2, items 3 through 5 are on consent. On page 3, items 6 through 10 are all on consent. On page 4, all items 11 through 13 are on consent. However, item 12 is going to be withdrawn by the department, so we will not consider that item. On page 5, items 14 through 16 are on consent. Page 6, all items 17 through 19 are on consent. On page 7, all items 20 through 26 are on consent. And finally, on page 8, items 27 through 33 are on consent. So are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll return to the board and ask if any board members would like to remove an item or request a motion for approval.
Motion on consent.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we will return to page 2 of our agenda. Item number 1 is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. So at this time, I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to make a public presentation. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit. Please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Karen King. I'm the CEO of Golden Empire Transit District, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I just wanted to take a few minutes and update you on some of the things that have been going on at the district, and we brought with us a couple of handouts that you might find of interest. This past spring, we did a survey of our riders, our community, and our community leaders, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we found out. We do this every 2 years. We actually survey every single route every day of the week to get our customers' feedback, and then we use that feedback to improve our service where we can. Of course, a lot of the improvements that they would like to see are things that have a budgetary impact, and we can't always do them. But I thought you might find some of the information that we got through those surveys of interest. 76% of the people that ride our bus do not have access to a car. So we have a largely transit-dependent population riding the buses here in Bakersfield. 68% are between the ages of 18 and 44, which is pretty young. In most urban areas, the bus ridership is an older population. So we focus a lot on CSUB and Bakersfield College as well as the high schools to hopefully train up future bus riders, get them used to taking the bus and want to use it in the future. 51% are male, and that's actually a little bit unusual as well. In most urban areas, you see that bus riders are typically female, so we're about half and half. 39% Latino and 31% white. 54% have a household income of less than $20,000. So it's understandable they don't have access to a car. Some of the things that they had to say about us was 81% of the riders said they were satisfied or extremely satisfied with our service. They like the directness of the routes. They feel they get high value for the money that they're spending. They think our staff is helpful. And they actually have a strong bond with our frontline staff. That would be our bus operators and our customer service reps. Some of the things that need attention is more frequent service, especially to be able to make transfers more efficient. They'd like service earlier in the morning, later at night. And we found out that really our riders don't know as much about us as we think they do, even though we think we put out a lot of information. They'd like to know more. Our paratransit service, which is our curb-to-curb service for those people with disabilities that prevent them from using the regular routes, the customers are very satisfied. They see it as a lifeline service that helps them get out to do the many things they need to do on a daily basis. And they particularly like our dispatch and scheduling employees who help them schedule their trips. They do have a perception that our service is oversubscribed. That's because everyone wants to go at the same time, as we all do. There's peaks and valleys in the demand for the service. And unfortunately, a lot of them are unwilling to try conventional transit, even though our regular transit service is 100% accessible. The last thing I'd touch on is our community survey. We found that most of the people we surveyed, their trips that they make regularly in their car are less than 10 miles, which is a good trip to make by public transit. And about half of them said they would be willing to try transit. Some of the things that we found out again was that people don't know enough about GET, that they perceive it as less convenient than driving their car. And even though I'm in the transit business, I'd say it probably is less convenient than driving their car in Bakersfield. It's pretty convenient to drive a car in Bakersfield. And many non-riders would be willing to switch to GET if there was a stop closer to their home. So those are things that we'll be working on, trying to make improvements in our service to see if we can capture more riders on public transit. The other paper that you received was actually a wraparound on your Sunday paper in March. It's our annual report to the community. And there's a lot of interesting information that you can look at your leisure, but I wanted to read one paragraph to you, and it's right here below this green banner that's in the middle of the page. It says, in sum, $31 million of operating expenses and capital investments generated $58 million of economic and fiscal impacts and $122 million of environmental benefits for a total contribution of $180 million. That's talking about GET and what our annual expenditures are in the Metro Bakersfield area. Dividing the grand total by the sum of operating expenses and capital investment, every dollar gets spends creates $5.80 of return for the Bakersfield metropolitan area. And I like to point that out because people think about transit as how you get from here to there, but yet it is also a big part of the economic engine of our community. And we're trying to spread that message and help people appreciate that we really do have a significant impact on our community in a positive way. Two last quick things, and thank you for giving me a couple extra minutes. I'd like to introduce to you DK Fox. DK is our new marketing manager. She took the place of Gina Hayden, who you may remember. She's been with us for about a month, and she's doing a terrific job. If your constituents have complaints, you can always send them to me, but ultimately I'll send them to DK. So if you want to send them directly to DK, we'll follow up on those complaints, or we take compliments too. And then lastly, you may already know, but at 9 o'clock on Friday morning, this Friday the 18th, we're having a media event on Virginia Avenue to commemorate and celebrate the joint project that was completed between the district and the county, the Public Works Department, to put in curb and gutter and sidewalk and other improvements along Virginia Avenue, especially to make it accessible to people in wheelchairs. So we'd invite you to attend that event if you have room in your calendar. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Supervisor Perez?
Thank you. I'll be quick. I love these documents you've put together. They're user-friendly, very easy, sort of a modern way to communicate information, and I appreciate that. I love these stories. This is fantastic. I'm hopeful you can provide these to news outlets around town. Just maybe send them over, maybe as part of the press packet even on Friday. When we have launched the work that we did jointly together. Of course, Supervisor Maggard deserves all the credit, but he'll humbly let me stand there and he's been, phenomenal on these issues, as you know. And so if you could make sure the press sees this stuff, I think it would be really helpful, because as you know, your own writers don't know much about, all of the, mechanics of the great work you're doing. The press, I think, knows even less, really, of these kind of details. So I think it would be good to keep them up on, the kind of improvements we're doing jointly and how our partnerships have really benefited the community and continue to. So hats off. I think these are just fantastic. I'm going to keep these. And please provide them to the press. I think they'll be very informative, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public presentations?
Hi, I would like to know if you can reconsider number 19, please. I wasn't
Reconsider?
here.
Are you
Yes.
asking to reconsider item 19?
Yes.
Okay, I'll leave that up to the supervisor whose district's that in. Supervisor Perez?
Thank you, Chairman, appreciate it. I would certainly ask for the opportunity for this gentleman to be heard with the chairman's prerogative, please.
Okay, so is that a motion to reconsider item 19?
Please.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, if you have a motion and a second, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And so we will now hear item 19, unless there are any other public presentations from any other members of the audience. Okay, seeing none, we'll move then to, if you could just wait a moment, sir, any board member announcements or reports? Okay, seeing none, all right, we'll hear item 19. This is an item that, as I indicated, is in the 5th District, and this is under our Public Works Department. And I'll ask Mr. Fenton, when you are ready, if you could please explain this item and start the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. This item is a request for your board to conduct a hearing to make a determination of a public nuisance and to order abatement involving boarding and securing of all structures, removal of trash, junk, and debris, and cleanup of a property located at 1726 Niles Street. That's assessor's parcel number 138140-10. It is owned by Triland Capital LLC. It's a commercial lot with multiple open and unsecured and dilapidated buildings. In December of last year, 2016, the county had to perform some emergency work to abate or secure an outside wall on one of the structures that had collapsed against a power pole between the building and the street. The structure's walls were flattened to the ground to eliminate the potential danger of the building self-collapsing. But the remaining unsecured buildings have been a harbor for vagrants, and multiple fires have been started in the buildings. The property owner has been unsuccessful in securing the property and the buildings and has not rehabilitated them into a usable condition. The Public Works Department, we've determined that it constitutes public nuisance in violation of the following sections of the county ordinance code. 17.36.020, for any building or structure intended for dwelling is deemed unfit due to inadequate maintenance and decay, for a structure becoming an attractive nuisance to children and a harbor to vagrants and criminals. Section 17.36.020-302.18, for a building or structure remaining on site after demolition or destruction, which may become a disaster. And 1736.020-302.16, for a building that's been damaged by fire, wind, earthquake, flood, or dilapidation. That is an attractive nuisance. And continuing on with additional violations, 17.36020-302.5, for a portion of the building likely to fail or become detached or dislodged and collapsing. Also 1716.020-1001.4, dangerous to life or detrimental to health, an open and unsecured structure. Section 8.44050, for failure to keep the premises free from creating a public nuisance. Finally, 8.28.110, for trash, junk, and accumulation of debris. So today we're requesting your board determine and confirm the department's request that the violations of the county ordinance code exist, and those violations constitute a public nuisance as described in chapter 8.44. The property owners have been properly noticed. This has been going on since early 2016, if not sooner. We believe the property owners have failed to keep this in a safe condition, and something needs to be done before it gets worse. We've notified the owners through the notice and order that the estimate to clean it up is approximately $24,000 and would be assessed against the subject property and could be collected as a special assessment on the tax bill if the county has to go in and abate the nuisance. There's been no progress toward boarding and securing the dilapidated buildings or removal of the trash, junk, and debris, so the Public Works is requesting that the county abate the nuisance if the owner fails to do so within 30 days. Again, the hearing was posted for today's hearing in accordance with the prescribed manners. Staff has reviewed the environmental effects per sections 15061B2, 15061B3, 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines, determined that further enforcement, this enforcement action is exempt from further review. So, quick summary. Again, we've been working on this for quite a while. We haven't been seeing enough activity, requesting your board to determine it's public nuisance, and he would have 30 days to clean it up. Otherwise, Public Works will do so. That concludes my report, but I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fenton. Now I'll ask if there's any members of the public that would like to make comment. Sir? If you could please identify yourself.
My name is Edmond Nahure. I'm one of the members of the Triland Capital LLC, owner of the property.
Okay, thank you. Would you spell that for the record, please, your last name?
Nahouray.
Thank you. And what's your statement, sir?
First of all, almost 3 or 4 times we have cleaned up the property completely. Unfortunately, there are a lot of homeless people over there that they are using drugs. We've been calling the police department more than 10 times. They come, they take the people, and then the next day again they are there. Our problem is that the police is not cooperating with us, is not keeping these people out of there. As soon as we purchase a property, 2 times they have fired the property, we have remodeled, and again they fired the property. We have fenced the property, they cut the fences and they removed it and they sell these fences. My problem is the homeless people. If the police department can help us to keep these homeless people away from the property, we're gonna finish the property, we're gonna remodel the property, we're gonna lease the property. Right now, our problem is the police department, they don't cooperate with us.
Okay, does that conclude your statement?
We've cleaned up the property 3-4 times. I can clean it again one more time, but again, it's gonna be the same problem.
Okay,
I need the police department, even them, they come here and have a meeting. It's why they don't take these drug dealer people out of there?
okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Are there any other comments on this item from members of the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask you to have a seat, and then we'll go to Supervisor Perez, and then if she wants to call you back up, then she will do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. Have you had opportunity to discuss this matter with the owner, and, what have those conversations been like, and have there been 3 or 4 cleanups? And generally speaking, how does an owner deal with the problems as we've described now? I understand and recognize that much of that is not in our control, and there isn't anything we as a board can specifically do about that today. But generally speaking, that problem, how should we think about the owner's responsibility vis-a-vis these, societal issues that are causing issues with property owners?
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, that's a good question. If I could solve that one, we'd be way ahead of the game.
I guess my more specific question is, what is your trade and practice and custom of dealing with these rather complicated matters when very little is within our jurisdiction to actually do anything about?
Understood. Thank you. And I do have Mr. Al Rojas. He's a code compliance supervisor that has been in contact with the owner. I have not personally talked to him, but I have been involved with this case for quite some time. What we are requesting today, it is a challenge, and I do think he has cleaned it up a couple of times. It keeps coming back. But there are some buildings on site that have been burned, and they will never be in my opinion, they're not savable. There is a larger abandoned building that we are proposing to board up and clean. It has also been broken into and inhabited by homeless people and vagrants. I'm not proposing to demolish that at this time because I believe at one point the owner has indicated his desire to do something with that building at some time, but he's not able to at this time. We did have contact when the wall leaned over against the power pole. We did make contact with him at that time, and even then, he said he wasn't in a position and didn't have the resources to do anything about it, and that was imminent failure, so we went ahead and took care of that ourselves. Today, we are requesting that we clean up the site, take care of the 2 damaged buildings, board up the other building, and hopefully, that will give the owner the opportunity to try and keep it clean and secured. And I would encourage him to keep reaching out to the sheriff and any other law enforcement in the area when he sees things. As you know, code compliance, we work close with them, but we don't have the authority or the ability to go in and deal with that element of the problem, although I do realize that is a problem.
I see. The previous work that had been done by the county, who bears the cost of that work that was previously done to make this area not as much of a safety hazard?
Currently, Supervisor Perez, through the chair, and Mr. Rojas can correct me if I'm wrong, we have not come back to your board for any cost recoveries on that. We wanted to get through this next stage of the cleanup and then would be bringing all those costs back for your board to consider if the owner chooses not to reimburse the county for the work that's been expended. We would come back to your board to direct him to do so or put a lien on the property as is customary.
Got it. So do you have an accumulating file, if you will, of work
Correct.
done, and ultimately there will be an invoice
Correct.
that this board can consider in light of all the circumstances?
That is correct.
Okay, got it. So if this board proceeds today to find a nuisance here and allow your team to go in 30 days from today, in theory, and clean out the facilities that have been burned and deal with those specifically that seem apparent cannot be rebuilt or used in their current and are an attractive nuisance, which I think is really the bigger issue here, in particular with children and animals. Will the owner have the opportunity within the next 30 days to deal with that how they see fit and pay whomever, third-party contractor would manage that? Is that one of the points of the 30 days?
Yes, Supervisor Perez, through the chair, it is. From 30 days after this hearing, if your board supports the recommendation, there will be another notice posted on the property 30 days from then. If we see no activity, the county will step in. Even if he does not have things completely cleaned up by then, if we see a diligent effort to do so and abate the nuisances within that 30-day time frame, we will work with them best we can and give them some more time. But again, we've been chasing this one for a while, and we think it's time to move forward.
I see. Thank you. Mr. Ross, can I speak with you for a moment, please? Thank you. I'm mostly curious as to whether the distinction between the property challenges that are occurring because of neighborhood dilapidation or other challenges that we're grappling with as a county and various cities, other than those issues, the fire issues themselves being disconnected from those other issues, have those been sort of bifurcated in communication with the owners so that they understand that the fire issues have to be addressed immediately and that they're not really related, at least insofar as county action is concerned, to the homeless population that is causing other issues here?
Supervisor Perez, through the chair. The severity of the violation has been communicated to the owner. It's been brought to the attention of the owner and the representative as far as the property manager. We've made them aware that there's a school nearby, that there's a lot of foot traffic along that corridor. We've indicated to them that, yes, the police department, or in this case, the sheriff's department, should be able to respond to their complaints, and they have. But sometimes for some properties, it's just not enough. Some properties attract certain elements, and when that happens, the typical sheriff response really is not enough. And in those particular cases, we make recommendations to owners to take additional steps. These are their investments, their properties, they're worth something to them, and they need to take steps to protect those properties. And those recommendations typically say, hire some security, hire a caretaker for the property. These items can really make an impact as far as keeping a property free of people, free of vagrants, free of people that are trying to either destroy the property, trash the property, etc. And in effect, it also in turn keeps the community a little safer. Now, these recommendations have been given either to the owner or the manager. Sometimes I'm not sure who I'm speaking to or who our staff has spoken to, but these ideas have been communicated to this group. And they've responded at times. They made a cleanup, and at times they've not responded. We had to do an emergency cleanup back in December.
I see. So the fire issues being, because I hear frustration from the owner that I sympathize with, that is not the county's fault. In my opinion, per se, we have some responsibility and we act within the resources that we have to address challenges with public safety and potential threats to property. But the burned down buildings or parts of the structure that need to be dealt with immediately, in my mind, are separate from the other issues as very well articulated by the owner, and that I greatly sympathize with. The fire issues are their own, create, in my mind, a sense of urgency and necessity to move quickly, particularly given the access of children in the area.
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, I would agree and concur that that is a life and health safety issue that needs to be immediately addressed.
Okay. And have you communicated that point as it relates to the fire issues, as it relates to the structures that have had fire damage?
I have not communicated it in a manner where the issues are separate. We've communicated in a manner where the entire issue is urgent and needs to be addressed immediately.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Ross.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Scrivener, or Chairman Scrivener, it would seem appropriate to me at this time to move forward and allow an opportunity for the owner and Mr. Rojas and our department to communicate what the best strategy is moving forward. These seem like very responsible property owners. But without this declaration from this body, my concern is that the fire issues may not be immediately addressed. And I've every confidence and faith that you're going to have a good, healthy relationship with these owners and giving them the kind of flexibility they need to, move quickly. But I do believe it's appropriate at this time to move forward with a statement from this board and move this issue along. And if there are issues, problems you have with these departments, then I'd want to know immediately, and we'll sit down together as a group and work through them. But it does appear to me to be appropriate to move forward based on what I've heard today. So that would be my motion.
Okay, so is that a motion on staff's recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez.
Second.
Supervisor Couch made a second. You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us to the conclusion of our agenda this afternoon. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, August 22nd at 9 a.m.
Motion.
We are adjourned.